It appeared that an illegitimate Belizean citizenship and passport scheme was operating in violation of the laws which governs the issuance of nationality and passport in the country. That simple sentence, part of finding 6.2 of the Special Audit Report on Nationality at the Immigration and Nationality Department between April of 2011 and September of 2013, sets the table for what is to come. 400 pages, chapter and verse, of a scheme terribly familiar to Belizeans who have been forced to share our national patrimony with people who have either never set foot on the shores of the jewel, or, if they did, stuck around just long enough to claim, briefly, Belize as their own. Most infamously, there was Wang Hong Kim, facilitated with his very own fraudulent Belizean nationality and replacement permanent residence permit, despite being on the other side of the world in a Taiwanese jail. He never personally paid a dime for either, nor could he come to claim his Belizean birthright. But that was because he had a very good friend in Belize, the former Minister of State for Immigration and Nationality, Elvin Penner. According to the testimony of Gordon Wade, officer in charge of nationality, Penner never delivered the necessary documents for approval of Kim's nationality, despite promising to do so. Instead, he requested the file for the personal attention of then-director Maria Marin. Wade's assistant, Adi Pacheco, was apparently indecisive about whether to go over Penner's head to substantive boss Godwin Hulse, so she hoped Penner would fill in the missing requirements, such as a police report. He never did. Penner was also a good friend to Jacob Sut, to Yu Pang Peter Pang Chen, to Jack G. Mark Chin Kin, and to Kok Vin Simon Truong, all fraudulently given nationality certificates despite key elements of their applications being missing. Each also applied for passports based on these bogus nationality certificates. But Penner was not the only violator among government ministers. The audit report found that under the guise of seeking investment in the country, Minister of Trade Erwin Contreras invited a group of Chinese investors, led by one Roger Ten, to visit in 2012. Seems above board, but one of those consultants, Jin Chenan, was later issued a Belizean nationality certificate, despite only applying for a 2-week visa to visit Belize in November of 2012 on business. He was supposed to be staying at the San Ignacio Hotel. Jin's visa was approved on October 24, 2012, by then-Director Ruth Main, based on Minister Contreras' letter, despite her own note attached that, and we quote, applicant decided they do not need visa again. But it doesn't end there. Jin had apparently been living in Belize from 2007 and had opened a place of business, National Bar and Restaurant at mile 2.5 Philip Goulston Highway, and had a Chinese passport and US visa. The affidavit on the nationality application form was witnessed by a Chinese justice of the peace of the same address and refereed by 2 Belize City businessmen, Wayne Mario Hulse, who apparently met Jin at the market, and Stephen Young, who knew him through the JP, but both claimed they knew him for 5 years. Jin Chen An also got a police record, searched and verified, and signed illegibly on behalf of Woman Sergeant of Police Eleanor Ramirez and allegedly Keith Lino, acting for then Assistant Commissioner of Police Miguel Segura. But all of this was based on a bogus Chinese passport issued May 2006, with many equally bogus stamps inside for travel to Belize and working for various places of employment, but no sign of any entry visa from Mexico to Belize. But who needs all of that when you've got then Area Representative for Caribbean Shores and Minister of State for Economic Development Santino Castillo on your side? He wrote Ruth Main to support Jin's application for nationality on September 13, 2012, before Jin even applied for a visa, and in the letter referred to her as female. We presume they never actually met. But wait, there's more. According to the auditors, replacement nationality certificates were fraudulently backdated and fraudulent nationality was given under the guise of registration and the Belize Economic Citizenship Investment Programs. Wait, what? Didn't Belize end economic citizenship in 2002? Well, someone forgot to give Tony in Dalian, China, the memo. He told a couple that they were applying for economic citizenship, but in fact they and many others became Belizeanized by registration, and they got passports too, not to mention other applicants from Russia, China, and elsewhere. And according to paragraph 89.5 of the report, two spreadsheets of persons who received Belizean nationality during the period investigated, April 2011 to September 2013, were received, and many of these persons were in fact approved and issued nationality certificates just before the 2012 municipal and general elections. Aaron Humes reporting for News 5.
And there you had a comprehensive story done by our correspondent Aaron Humes on the immigration audit report. Now we're going to start our conversation. Of course, we have joining us at this time attorney at law Richard Dickie Bradley. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and thank you. How is the start of your morning?
Going well so far. So of course, Dickie, there have been we have been talking about the special audit report for over a week. And in fact, I think many people were anticipating the conversation coming up in the House of Representatives. Since all of what unfolded on Friday, the chaos on Friday took place, we didn't see that take place. So we'll keep the conversation going, looking at the report and what we find as we go along. I want to start off by just asking what your reaction is when you see and hear the details coming out of the report.
Well, for me, in a sense, it's not surprising. Actually, you know, we really should start by saying that the Auditor General, a woman, they're always talking about empowering women, that the Auditor General deserves special commendation that she has been so brave, and her staff, for in fact proceeding down this road to produce a 3-volume report on one of the many government departments in the country. There are some departments which are small, which are not as impactful as some others. Certainly the Land Department, the Customs Department, the Police Department, Immigration Department are important for the different functions that they do. In reading through the audit report on immigration, as you know, immigration has been from you were going to, when you started high school in Belize City, immigration has been a major scandal point for both administrations, both government. And one of the things that is of concern right now still yet is that a new government came in 2008 with the public promise, the public commitment that this business of having corruption, of grave wrongdoings will come to an end. The whiff of corruption and they'll be gone, the guillotine. Now here we are for only a little over a 2-year period, April 2011 to around September of 2013, that the Auditor General and her experts have gone in and found what is in fact a shocking state of affairs, in the sense that the purpose of the Immigration Department really is to deal with the issuance of visas, to deal with an even more important matter which is clouded in the word nationality, because really what that is saying is it's the giving, the granting of citizenship, which is a sacred thing in any country. Everybody loves their citizenship. And then if you get citizenship, you're entitled to a travel document that is called a passport. The auditors found by the hundreds upon hundreds, in each of those categories, that from minor irregularities, oversight, human error, right through to the worst kind of things that we could find out, because in fact there was a conscious, deliberate, ongoing exercise of going around the procedures and the systems, going under the procedures and the system, going over the procedures and the system, in order, in the words of the audit, to facilitate fraudulent schemes that resulted in persons who are not qualified getting visas, getting nationality certificates, and then ultimately being able to have a travel document. Now, I would really, and we only have a short time this morning, but at some stage we could take a look, Marlene, in relation to where we go forward as a country. We can't continue to be stumbling from, one scandal to another in relation to these matters. Because let's ask a question. One of the questions is this, that when Belize, this small, wonderful country we are blessed with, when Belize engages in what the Auditor General and her staff found in terms of intentionally, deliberately giving the citizenship of the country to people we know very little about. When we do that, the implications for the rest of countries in the world, especially our very good friends who attack other countries and themselves are under attack, the United States of America cannot afford to have any country selling and giving away the citizenship and having persons getting access to the passports of our country. So when you and I, meaning the ordinary citizen, well, not I, because I'm not putting my foot on another plane unless it's Maya or it's tropic, but when persons arrive in the United States of America
with a Belize passport,
every jack person is going to be under scrutiny. Many persons are going to be told to come out of the line so they could check. That is the least of it, the inconvenience, the embarrassment. People see, they tell you go and stand one side and say, got drugs in Brazil, all kind of things. That is the least of it. The bigger problem is that, in fact, international criminals, their agents, and most of all, the people who want to hurt the United States of America and its innocent citizens who are not part of what the government is doing in attacking and invading other countries. Now we happen to have large cruise ships coming here. A number of Belizeans depend on their livelihood for these ships. If the wrong people get their hands on a passport and get down here and not only can, but will get in touch with their other friends, they can kill these American citizens, they can blow up these ships in our harbor. So these things have implications. It's not just, then thief again, wouldn't do this again, what else is new? The blue used to do it, the red they do it.
Well, and that was the point I was going to get at, because we live in such a politically polarized country, when issues like this come to light, the first line of defense by many is simply, well, the other administration used to do it as well. And that is the case. There have been nationality passport scandals that have been a part of previous administrations that were not United Democratic Party. But the point is to look at what it does in terms of the validity of our passport and also the long-term implications. One of the things that perhaps we don't say enough is this is an audit for only 2 years. We don't know what happened after 2013. We don't know if there will be a further investigation to see if it had continued after 2013. We don't know if there will be specific actions taken to revoke what is proven to be fraudulent documents. I was asking you before we went on air the legality of these documents, now that it has been proven that Mr. X, Y, and Miss Z did not even reside in Belize when they received their passports. Is that the case? Can there now be an order to revoke all these documents or cancel these documents?
Most certainly, it can't be a blanket revocation. They would have to individually confirm that, in fact, what the audit has found is so. Any person who obtains nationality, citizenship of Belize, by any fraudulent means, deception, lies, that yes, they resided in Belize for 5 years when they never came here, under the law, those can be revoked and should be revoked. Once a person is given some benefit, to take it away, you can't say, well, all right, listen, everything in that report gone, because there are going to be some explanations. Can I just say 2 things before it slips my mind? In a large report of this nature, where the auditors painstakingly try to go through those documents which are available, because one of the shocking things that the Auditor General has said in writing is that, one, they did not get access to all the files, to all the documents. But worse than that, and this is actually incredible, that there were efforts in the department to block, to undermine, to affect the ability of the auditors to conduct a check. Now that is incredible because she says she was forced to report it to the ministry, to the chief executive officer. And I'm really hoping we could spend some like 7 or 8 or 8.5 minutes to see what is going on. Because let me just make a couple of points. One of the good things in reading the audit report is that the Auditor General herself, and let me start here, Marlene, by saying that in section 109 of the Constitution of Belize, the position, the post of Auditor General is established by the Constitution itself. The same Constitution that you had asked me, is it true it set up the Prime Minister, is the Constitution that set up the Leader of the Opposition, set up the Chief Justice, set up the Senate, set up the House of Representatives. That same Constitution says that there shall be an Auditor General for this country, for the government of Belize. And the Auditor General is appointed not through the way regular public officers are appointed, or worse, not through this crony system and this, oh, you may support me so you can get a good job and so on. No. She can only, or he can only become the Auditor General of this country if both houses of our parliament, the elected House of Representatives and the appointed senators, must both approve her appointment, almost like the American system, where President Obama can't appoint nobody. He can only nominate and recommend. In Belize, the Prime Minister of this country is more powerful than the President of the United States in terms of the administrative ability. He appoint the Commissioner of Police, he appoint the judges, he appoint this one. Only thing I left, he appoint that the Leader of the Opposition, he appoint even the Governor General. Everybody. Obama can't do that. He can only recommend, and then there's a special Senate procedure. So the Auditor General is a creature of the Constitution of Belize because the position is so important. And it is not just unfair, it is wrong. For example, I think you were telling me this morning that on one of the newscasts, an elected member of the House is trying to, or sounding like he's finding fault with the Auditor General and finding fault with the Auditor General's work. Worse than that, the Speaker of the House, before the reports are even tabled, he attacks the report. He's hurted because he's mentioned in there wrongly, and anybody who knows the Auditor General knows that she's the first one who will apologize if that is so, if there's an error. But you can't just say because 2 needle cases come out in September, it means that next week is Christmas. You don't go like that. So you can't say, okay, there are errors. There are bound to be human errors in anything. I am an attorney. I'm also a notary public. You can't be a notary public unless, one, you're a liar and you've been a liar for a number of years. And I am required by law, if I so choose, to be able to sign an application form. And if they say, but Dickie Balihina, no, minister, how he signed in 2012? I did not sign as a minister. And I know that people make errors, but that don't detract from not only the totality of the report, but from the very grave findings that were found in relation to the procedure. So, yes, this report is like, hey man, when is this country ever going to get an immigration department which is properly managed, properly run, efficient and honest officers of integrity? And also another important thing I want to bring up is this. In the report, the auditors, on behalf of the Auditor General, because she can't go and do everything herself, clearly, had the opportunity to speak to some of the immigration officers who were involved in one of the worst scandals in our country, where a minister of government was actually engaged in signing citizenship papers that gives you a passport as well. And you know, first of all, on my way here, I said, you know, I wonder what kind of hard question Marlene will ask me. I don't want to get into the details, and I will try certainly not to call any name. No call no name. Yeah. But in Belize, by a man who knows better, we had 2 ministers of immigration, 2 of them with the authority to sign, 2 of them with the authority to go into this scandal-ridden department and be personally involved in what is going on. The Auditor General in her report says it is unlawful. No, there's no law that gives any minister the authority to go in and says, I have a friend that I want to help speed up on passport, and so give me the form there and this, that, and take away the forms, or bring forms to the officers them to say, as is in the report that was said in relation to the biggest scandal with the one king, yes.
One hung king.
That there is no law, that is impermissible. That is not how it goes in the good old days in the system. A minister would say to the permanent secretary, or what is now called the chief executive officer, listen, I have a query from such and such a person, would you check into it? Because, can I just say this? One of the officers that the auditors interviewed, why you make them do this, man? How you make them come and bring one thing with a half a quarter? The form not properly full out, have the attached documentation to prove anything. And the officer quite correctly said, listen, that the minister bring it, I never want to transfer me. I tell my supervisor that this is the way it happened. And that is true. If a minister call and you say, like, minister, I'm really sorry to say, but you can't call and tell me if you hurry approve some kind of form for somebody, because that's not proper. Because if they don't do it, the minister will make them transfer them, or worse, they lose their job. And now what has happened to the public service, Marlene, is that in fact the whole system of the constitutional protection for public officers has collapsed. Public officers are fearful, they know that ministers are petty and vindictive, and they will hurt them. And that is what led to some of the things in here. So that is a fault.
And I think that this has really caught the attention of the public. The naming of the individual ministers, or those who were ministers at the time, who signed and intervened in the process, to be able to assure that these persons, whether they met the criteria or not, would be able to get the documents that they're requesting. Now, the question is whether or not that is allowed for under our laws. We know in Belize, if you want something done, or if you want to be able to have some kind of influence in speeding up your process, there's a practice that you go to your minister and you say, or your area representative, I should say, and say, I'm trying to get X, Y, and Z. Could it be seen, and this I'm asking this question specifically because in yesterday's interview with Honorable Michael Finnegan, he spoke about who says it's illegal to intervene on behalf of your constituent. Who says it's illegal to be able to follow up on an application that is currently at the passport office or at the immigration department? So I'll pose that question to you. Is it allowed under the laws that a minister can request perhaps information, status as to how an application form is being processed?
Let me start at this stage. First of all, what used to happen, I think one person was required to make a recommendation if a person is applying for a passport. And then somebody who don't understand the public service system and don't understand what is involved changed it so that 4 individual persons are required to sign on a passport application. I happen to have been with someone who came from down south to try and file in an application for a passport. Marlene, you have to get a teacher who is a certified teacher. And you live in a village or in a small area, maybe the village teacher or somebody there is not yet a fully qualified, certified teacher. You know the problem we have with that, where hundreds upon hundreds of teachers are still trying to get their certification. So you can't get that person, you have to go somewhere else to find that person. An attorney or a justice of, I don't think they take out justice of the peace, a notary public, an area representative, a minister of government, 4 different persons for an application, they apply. I mean, it's easier to get into heaven just for the bureaucratic process. Now, can I tell you this, and Mayor Wilfred Elrington, the Honorable Wilfred Elrington, always discuss this matter. The more difficult it is you make any procedure, whether it's for a license for a firearm, a license to sell alcohol, a license to open a food vendor, any kind of thing that you need official approval for, the more difficult you make it, you are then creating opportunities for hustling, thievery, and for all kind of skullduggery. Because look what has happened here now. Because of the question that you're asking, it goes all the way into the nation's cabinet. The government is tainted. The Prime Minister, who can't be faulted, except that he is the leader of Alibaba's gang, is that they're saying these ministers are corrupt. They're doing it for hustling. They're doing it for illegal reasons. Now, if they were not allowed to intervene in the process personally, or by writing these recommendation letters, or by picking up their phone and calling, or as the Auditor General found, not only ministers, you know, ministers, drivers are going over to the immigration with forms. We have the same thing over at the Lands Department, which the Prime Minister says is either a hotbed of corruption or a cesspool of corruption. Then he tells us that he's done nothing about it. It just remains right there. So, answer your question. The Auditor General, in the opening of her report on the part of dealing with visas, says that this business of ministers recommending and making requests and want the officials to approve these things, it is unlawful. No law provides for it. She's 100% correct. If it was by way of just making an inquiry to say, one of my constituents has claimed that she applied 4 years ago and still not get citizenship, even though he lives here from small, there will be nothing wrong with that. But this is not what the Auditor General is talking about. This is ministers actually taking in the form, incomplete, improper, illegal, wrong, and then tell the officer, go ahead and process and approve it, and I will bring in the thing later on. She said many of them are doing it. That is entirely illegal, Marlene. An ordinary citizen of Belize who wants to apply for a piece of land, or a humble brother or sister out there who want to farm a little 10 acres of marijuana to make money and whatever, tomato, it could only be marijuana, tomato, it could be whatever. Guess what? You don't apply, you know, because if a minister don't write a recommendation letter for you, the Land Department will not even look at your application. No law requires or says that. This is not some innocent little note, my constituents is applying for a land, see if you can help. Huh? These are people who are intervening in the process in the country. Let's put the question another way. Can a minister of government walk into the police station and say to the sergeant on duty who is in charge, listen man, one of my constituents is there for a morning or whatnot. Let them go and later on I will come in and double check it. Can he do that? Any law says he can do it? Absolutely not. And the many things that they do. You see, this system of government we have, Marlene, which comes from the British, which they have evolved and almost perfected, which they are finding fault with their system. In Belize, the system that work for us, you know. For we country is not going forward, it's going backward. Our country is not getting better, it's getting worse. The ministerial system of government in Belize, a small country, everybody who turn minister turn a little god, that is not helping our country, man. Okay?
No, and as you pointed out, and in follow-up to the question that I posed earlier in terms of the legality, the public officers in the report state that by virtue of the fact that a minister presents or applies on behalf of another person is why they proceed with executing these orders.
Good. Let's go there, because let us just say this. In the reports, it's shocking. It's an indictment on those who are in charge of the country, because nobody in the public service just go around and do what they want. Every department have a head of department, and presumably or hopefully a deputy head of department. A head of department is answerable to the chief executive officer, who is supposed to be, because it don't happen anymore, who is supposed to be a career public officer who has some training and experience in management, in personnel, in leadership. There's a course they used to actually teach it in Belize, you know. called public administration. You can get a certificate in public administration. You can get a first degree from the University of the West Indies in public administration. You're not running no supermarket here. You're not running some stall out at the Queen Square Market. This is the government's business, the nation's business. So that is the reason why in the Constitution of Belize, it goes to great length in our country and many of the young countries then that after the Second World War start get their independence. There is an organization called the Public Service of Belize. There is a constitutional process where the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, they agree on the composition. There's to be a chairman or chairwoman or chairperson and 5 or 4 other members. Only the public service can hire and fire public officers. Only the Public Service Commission can discipline or transfer you. That is so important because it insulates these people in immigration or customs or lands or the police department from feeling fearful that why the minister call, I better do what the minister want, otherwise I go in at the job. The Auditor General found that that is one of the problems. The public officers, they are fearful that these petty and vindictive ministers, and we know that they are like that, small-minded, quarrelsome, sissy, and behave very wrong. So,
but there is protection in place. That's what you're saying.
There ought to be. There ought to be. Yes, yes.
But not in practice.
Right, because the ministers, they are now hiring people in the public service department outright. Because in the same way they can go into the immigration department and intimidate by their very presence and their high position and their small-mindedness, they do it elsewhere. The other day they were complaining that people who are applying to be a police officer, if you not get a note from the minister, the representative in that particular place there where he is the minister of the police, your application is not going to go anywhere, you know. If we check on people, you would find that maybe more than 50% of them come from one locality. The lands department, the professional public officers, they say, my goodness, what is going on? The minister, they bring everybody from his constituency, from his area. So the system of government is collapsing around us. And can you imagine, imagine the possibilities, the best are still yet to come. Guess what? When we see the audit for the Petrocarib money, the millions of dollars that has gone up, evaporated. When you see an audit for customs, where customs officers are building 5, 6 houses out of cash, no loan, no nothing. Everywhere you look, we have a big problem in the country. Small country, big problem. It's because of your question not being dealt with by successive governments. The public service has an important role to play in the country. Marlene, if you go to the lands department and you are a UDP and see your PUP enemy, so-called enemy on the other side, and then 10 months after your application you don't hear anything, won't you feel like, man, they just tear up my application and throw it away? You can't have the public service being politicized, bringing in people who are not qualified, whose loyalty is to their party or their minister,
or feel that their job is dependent
upon that system there.
Yes.
So there is, under the laws of the country, the highest law in the land, provision that the public service is to be a professional.
Now, in the interest of time, we need to talk about some of the points in the report itself. It's, as you point, there are 3 reports. And there is a wealth of information that is provided within them. We have been slowly dissecting it within the media, each media house doing their part in that. But I want to ask you, as a legal mind looking through the document, what stands out to you the most?
There are so many things that stand out.
Well, let's get a couple of them out.
I think one that I agree 100% with the Auditor General is that she found 2 important things. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Everything, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. But she says there is no manual, there is no written procedure in relation to some of these matters. Then she says that there is no policy. And thirdly, where there does exist some policy and some procedure, they are not followed. Now we run for we country, it's not the British who are here. We have taken over. In running our country, we are ruining our country because there are lots of high-paid people with high positions. Recently somebody just drive and go on expensive going vehicle in the water. Under the rules, the Auditor General will no doubt deal with that when she reaches it. Under the rules, anybody does that to any government asset, by law they are called upon to say why they should not be surcharged. Either pay the full amount or 3/4 the amount or whatever amount the Ministry of Finance officials and the Accountant General Office determine they're responsible for. That is the law of the land. And it's about, show me which law. The law is you can't go and just pick up somebody from somewhere and make them a minister and they want to make a point and they go and take fire and burn up millions of dollars of rosewood, this valuable resource that we have when we bring furniture from abroad. When people are prepared to pay a large amount of money for rosewood, just burn up the rosewood like that, you are destroying the public's property. So, for the Auditor General, this is what stood out for me, because I probably didn't confess this to you, but when I left school, I went to work in the public service. The best years of my life, I worked in the public service. I went from a clerk in the public service to becoming a permanent secretary to becoming a minister of government. I was hospital administrator, I was all kind of things and so. Best years of my life. Man, if I had only known, I would not have wasted a day. It's a thankless task. People don't appreciate that you do things and so on and so forth. Listen, how can there not be any written guidelines for you, an immigration officer that comes in? You're working at Philip Goldson Airport, you're working at the Benke border, you don't have something that you follow.
No policy and procedure.
When you reach policy, just a manual of how you do. Somebody comes, this is what the first thing you check. They have a passport, you check the date that it's valid, does it have the stamp? Have they entered Belize before? All kind of things. Is there a list of persons who ought not to enter the country because of security? Basic things, come on, we run a country, You see what happened to? At the highest level, the highest public officer is a chief executive officer. They have no knowledge of the public service. They have no interest in learning their job about the public service. They are a crony that come in and go out when the party comes. So the first shocking information is that in an important department like the immigration, where our citizenship can be sold, where somebody who never set foot in our country become a Belizean, is that there are no manuals. And then secondly, even where there are, and policies are different matter. Policy is, can we share this just quickly? There are two things surrounding immigration. One policy, Marlene, is an immigration policy. Who do you want to come into your country? You have an open door where anybody could just come in, or are you going to do like most other intelligence in the country and have a selective approach towards things? People can apply and come and work here, and we need more Jamaicans in agriculture, more Guyanese in agriculture to come to Belize so that this vast tract of land where we know the touch can be developed and bring prosperity to all our people. We need a population policy. What is the population of Belize? What is the ethnic makeup? Are we going to have racial problems later on? Are we trying to balance it off because we are next door to our Hispanic brothers and sisters, then they pour in and then we're not balancing off? Are the black people in Belize going to find themselves like black people in America, who if it's left to Donald Trump, put you over the wall? So that is the shocking part to me. And the second thing, it seems that there's no ministry that is responsible for the department. How can the Auditor General in 2016 find there is no policy for giving out certificates, no policy to protect this thing? Marlene, among the things that she found, among the many, many things that she found is, guess what? Then the photocopy. They don't use our original picture, then the photocopy, more photocopy. Man, how terrible can it be? She finds that at the different entry points and so the forms are not even signed. There is no ledger. This is one elementary matter. If you have empanades, how much can you get in? elementary matter. There's no ledger to say how many people are coming in, what date they came in, what date they're supposed to leave.
And that's just day-to-day functioning within the immigration department.
Yeah.
That's not even talking about
those
that have been issued that didn't meet the requirement. I believe the count, and we heard it several times on Friday, 16% of our population, 55,000.
Who are holding passports which are questionable. How could that ever happen in 2016 under the leadership of a man who knows better? He's been in government before, you know. He's not no some drag up person who just turn one minister and you go from a... So that to me that my country doesn't have policies in place is a shocking indictment of the government. To me that there are some policies and some procedures, but they are not being followed. You mean there's no scrutiny? There's no supervisory role by the ministry? Look at what happened, I think it's right over this weekend after the soca madness. What a term to use, madness, then stab a young man and take away life. Look what happened. My good friend, my very good friend Godwin Hulse is the Minister of Police. Today is Wednesday. There's not a word, there's not a statement from the government, from the ministry, that members of this gang that has been disrespecting Belize people and been going on like this could follow young men, whether they're bad, good, or whatever, and then beat up people, got them on a gun like guana, and shoot them. Isn't like that the first time this is happening? No, not a word. Is this our democracy? Is this really for we country? So to me, as somebody who had a little insight and worked in the public service, to find out at this late stage of the government, my goodness. Marlene, there's another matter. They have the special branch. What is special branch doing that all these things are happening? People are turning up at the airport. Nobody don't know nothing about them, who they are. You know, a shocking thing. It's a simple thing, but it's shocking. The Auditor General found there is no safe to put in the visas. Man, my goodness. This one is in terms of a complete breakdown in the running of our nation. That cabinet, which has oversight over these CEOs and over ministers and over their ministries, that not work at all. That whoever is the chief executive officer in these places, who is the CEO in the police now, that they could do what they're doing? Let me ask
you, just going back to the audit for a second. We know that today at the Senate meeting, the People's United Party will be making a request for an independent investigation on the audit. It was denied when it was brought up after the one honking scandal, saying let's wait on the audit. Now that the audit is out, they will make the request again. From your perspective, what do you think can be done based on what we are seeing in the audit at this time?
It's time for change of government.
Okay.
I mean, this is going on over and over and over. The Prime Minister of this country says, you know what? We have the legal, we have the factual evidence, but we don't have the legal evidence. It's distasteful and it sounds, but nobody is held accountable for it. Nobody. If you have a system where nobody is accountable, you're gone. That's like you supposedly have a family and the picnic will do what they want, and your leave picnic rude, they are brats and they do what they want, and you divide it every time. You make one excuse and a justification for it. Aye man, listen, the British have long gone, Marlene, in a free country, you know, it's being ruined. You should see it.
So let me ask you this again. Yeah. I'll ask the question again. Outside of what, and we hear this from the People's United Party, that change of government will be able to remedy the situation. Outside of that, because triggering an election less than a year after the previous one, it seems a bit far-fetched. But if you were to look at it from a legal perspective, strictly legal perspective, what can be done based on what is coming out of the audit report? We spoke about the revocation, or at least a review of the 55,000 documents that, based on the audit report, are questionable. I'll use that word. I think that's the best one we can settle on. Are questionable at this point. That's one action that can be requested by the people of this country. I travel, you travel, other people travel. We understand what this means for us, and we legitimately hold our documents. So what else can be done as a result of the audit?
Well, follow what is in fact the requirements. An Auditor General's report is, guess what? the audit department and the Ministry of Finance comes under the Prime Minister, you know. From May, the Auditor General send the report. Can I tell you what is the actual procedure very quickly? When auditors are in your department or ministry, and they're going through their records, whatever documents, and so this is why government records are to be preserved and protected until they are properly dealt with and then sent over to the archives for prosperity so we can go back through and see what was happening. When the auditors find something, they there and then go through it, take it up with their supervisors, their boss, and they write the department that they're auditing to say that our auditors have come across that you had 4 vehicles and we can only find 3. And then the department gets an opportunity to explain, oh, see a correspondence here, the Ministry of Finance agreed that the vehicle will be used, and there's an explanation. It goes through the whole thing right up to the ministry. The department can't properly explain it, the ministry is to explain, because they're the oversight for departments. It goes right up to that. Then, with all the explanations, clarifications, those are deleted from the report because they have been cleared up. If it's unsatisfactory, they remain in there. And then the audit report is given to the man who is in charge of the country, the Prime Minister, who by law is required to table it into the House of Representatives. So all the members of the elected system have that document, can speak to it in public, can refer to it in public. This business that, guess what, you attack the messenger. They're starting to attack the Auditor General. This brave woman who is not fearful that in fact, they're going to dig up a personal business, get into all kind of things, and so because she's doing her job, aren't we glad that somebody to do their job? They're not afraid, aren't we? My goodness, so there's a procedure, and then the Auditor General will say in her report that for these matters, we recommend that in fact criminal investigations go underway. And then there's to be no interference with that. And then, of course, you know what happens with the police. You think the immigration officers are afraid for ministers, and so you go and look at the police side of it. Oh, me and you then go harass me, broke down the door, broke up the place, and so on. So tell them go investigate the ministers. Tell them find out who was in the minister's vehicle when it was dripping water. Tell them go and do the investigation. So there is a process, but as we are saying, this is the saddest thing in Belize. A handful of people who are called ministers. They're not only called ministers, you know. They're fancy enough to call themselves honorable. In Shakespeare, you know, in the Julius Caesar, they said that they're all honorable men. Yeah. They are ruining the land. We need to look at another system because ruination has come to us. Can we say this? Can we say this? We just,
as a closing?
If you want me to. We just had the results of an independent inquiry into a young boy who was shot, where Guatemala was actually getting ready to put troops on our border. It could have been used as an excuse to invade us, you know. We're a nation that is being claimed by a massive country next door with 15 million people. They quickly agreed to an independent investigation into that matter. A man emerged. They find the head of a pastor in his vehicle. And there are lots of people in the society who would really want to know exactly what happened. Not only happened with that matter, but what happened that this person is being claimed to have influence over our ministers. Remember, our ministerial system is corrupt, you know. Now somebody has penetrated and, pun intended, some of these ministers. And Marlene, I give this one so much money. This one come to my house all the time. Picture of this one naked in one of my bed, all kind of things. And they're saying, you know what? Let's get to the bottom. This is how, listen, if you do not tackle the problems, you can never come up with a solution. So if you want me to end, let me end by saying a simple thing like that. The opposition is saying they're going to ask that the senators, the 3 senators, this bogus Senate where they got, this bogus Senate is going to get a government who has never done anything about wrongdoing to suddenly turn around and say, yeah man, make we just open up the doors and let them all come. Waste of time.
Okay, well, we will see. But we thank you for joining us this morning and being able to share your perspective and some of the legal aspects of the audit itself.
You're always welcome.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of university students from Taiwan who are here doing special summer programs with Belizean schools. So stay tuned.